Hello there and welcome to another Stompy 51 miniature adventure. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to react to the unofficial Hobby Hangouts ongoing commentary of my various YouTube videos. Now, if you are watching this video, you need no introduction to the On Tabletop website, which is, as far as I'm concerned, the go-to website for everything to do with what we all call the hobby. So I'm sure you're all familiar as well with Warren. He's the fellow on their weekly show who always shouts, "Indie of the Week," with a kind of diaphragm the size of an elephant. And he obviously has a really good, kind heart. And he came up with an idea that On Tabletop shouldn't just be a source of news, but they would also kind of give a platform to people with their different projects, including people who had, a little bit of a YouTube channel, so that, people could go through their website as a kind of collected single space for people to articulate what they're doing with all of their piles of opportunity. So I uploaded links to my various YouTube videos, kind of grouping them into Blood Bowl, futuristic Dead Zone kind of stuff I've been doing when I had Flintlock efforts, Burrows and Badgers, and I suppose what I tend to focus on mostly, which is my sporadic fantasy upcycling. Over time, though, I noticed that sometimes there'd be this random comment placed beneath some of my entries saying your project has been visited by the unofficial Hobby Hangout Huzzah. And I just thought, what in the world is that? And then I realised through YouTube that Jerry McCabe, I hesitate to call him a micro-celebrity because in my world he is just a god of kind of hobby, knowledge and charisma, and this German fellow whose name escapes me, probably because I never knew it, but he is, I think, called Some Dude on YouTube, that both of them were basically going through all of the projects on Tabletop, doing a bit of a commentary. And initially I just thought, well, what's the value of that? But then I realised, first of all, between them they have huge knowledge, they offer very interesting thoughts on what people are doing, they offer tips, but also, if you think about it, if you're painting yourself, if you're doing the washing up or something, it is quite fun to have some people just kind of go through the highlights of what projects are on there, and you just listen to what they're saying, and then you kind of look up whenever they clearly bring to your attention something which is just aesthetically gripping. And I realised that they had been looking at my little humble channel. And so what I thought I'd do today, and we'll see how it goes, is I kind of collected the bits where they look at my channel and offer their thoughts, and I would just respond to some of the points that they make. And if I can somehow get into a massive fight with them, and offend them somehow, and then generate a kind of fake miasma of frenzied interaction and just to drive kind of traffic between our little channels, all the better. The only thing I'd say is that if you have delicate ears, I would go and watch something else, because Jerry in particular, despite being an absolute legend in the hobby, basically has an absolute potty mouth. So you are warned. Sometimes it is a bit like watching Canadian stand-up.
So, Stompy here, who's started appearing more regularly. I don't know if I'd noticed him before, but anyway, little YouTube channel. He does unboxings and reviews and sort of chit-chats and does painting and all sorts of stuff.
So the thing is, I recorded a few videos about 10 years ago, maybe more, 2010, and then I never really looked at YouTube again for about a decade. And then I realised, look, I've painted up a fair number of miniatures, assembled a few, and although I do play a fair number of games, say 2-3 a month, including card and board games, wouldn't it be nice to kind of get these things out into the world? And so if I spent an hour painting something, instead of just leaving it in a box to be used, 10 times in its life over a decade, you get 1,000 views or something in a short, and people get to see what you've done and offer their own thoughts, however harsh the criticism or fair the criticism. It's just out there, and which is fun in and of itself. And better to do that, bits and bobs late at night, instead of just consuming more Netflix and Amazon Prime.
You'll see as you scroll through, he has a variety of sort of games that he plays, from Age of Sigmar to like proper games on Square basis. But I won't hold that against him. But I quite like the videos where he sort of looks at various bits and bobs, showcases, unboxes, whatever it happens to be. Um, I really like the fact that he's got a Marauder Giant. I had three of them once. I'm down to two now. I give one away. It's a terrible shame. Shouldn't have done that.
Well, Jerry, that was an uninspired decision on a range of levels, not just emotional, but also financial, given the general going rate, or asking price at least, on eBay these days.
Should not have done that. But I just thought I would make people aware of his YouTube channel, um, especially if you're of a fantasy bent, uh, more fantasy than anything else. I will
Oh,
say that.
Cromlech. Painting Cromlech gnaws.
Nami nami nami.
Well, I have done a lot of fantasy miniatures over the last decade, but I think that's more of a function of what people were playing around me, because when I kind of got back into the hobby in about 2010, I used to go to the local games workshop because, hey, why wouldn't you if you never knew what you were doing? And I remember everyone looking at me saying, oh, why are you basing miniatures kind of with, painting them goblin green and putting this luminous kind of green flock on it? And it was, well, isn't that what everyone used to do back in 1995 when I was last involved? But anyway, so most of my collection is really that. And I find once you've got a kind of good body of stuff painted, you want to just keep painting stuff that kind of fits in with that, because then you've got like a proper army. It's such a hill to look up to start something new. Albeit, I think that's why a lot of people get involved in skirmish wargaming because of that. So I do have a bit of a butterfly approach. I do collect a lot of historicals and sci-fi, albeit again more at a kind of skirmish level. I haven't, the idea of collecting hundreds and hundreds of plastic Napoleonics is just something that I think will never happen, not least given that there's no local forum for playing with those anyway. But I think I've always been like that. I remember when I was a kid and I used to go to some kind of aeroplane modeling after school club, and the guy was called Les Netherton, and he'd been in the South African Air Force in North Africa, and he was very supportive of what I did. But he would always say, "You are a grasshopper, man. You basically just skip from one scale to another scale of aeroplane miniature. And actually, what you should do is decide. I'm only going to collect, I don't know, RAF aircraft of like 1941 or whatever, and just stick to those in one particular scale." And I was like, why? Why? If you can get whatever you want, why not just bounce around? How is being a grasshopper a bad thing?
Hmm.
Yeah. So we
I always loved
shall,
that.
or rather, I will be having a look at his YouTube channel later. Then
Yeah.
maybe even leave a subscription of some description,
Oh, oh.
if I feel
I remember
generous.
cutting off Dirthu the Tree Man's arm and replacing the Marauder Giants club with Dirthu's arm. Just so it meant he had this big long branch, and then just the thin part was the wrist, and past his arm was this hand. I think I sold that one. Wish I hadn't done that.
What is it with Jerry and like criminal damage? Do It Through the Tree Man, I think, is a Trish Carden model, Trish Morrison model, that now goes for, again, about 100 quid on eBay. I have one, and I'll do a video about it, but the idea of severing the arm and doing something creative with it, just beggars belief. Jerry, come on. And then you gave it away.
At one stage, I had quite a lot of giants because giants were in the day before core troops and all that shit from GW cats. They they just had percentages, and giants counted as your standard troops for orc and goblin
Mm.
army. So you could just run giants. 205 points. I'll just have 8 giants, please, and then some wizards in a fucking huge unit of half point goblins with all the fanatics and madcap mushrooms and the Bad Moon Banner and the Ruby Chalice. I used to play some filth lists. Thankfully, I grew out of that. I just do
Yeah.
fluff now. Just fluff.
Well, look, who isn't a fan of loads of giants? And that brings to mind one of my kind of longer term hobby objectives, which is to get this bundle from my mini factory of some fantastic sculpts, 3D sculpts by Duncan Shadow. You can usually get these for half price in any case and get them printed. The only thing that's kind of holding me back is the fear that, if the resin isn't properly cured in the middle of these big chunky miniatures, if the temperature's a bit wrong outside, I do leave my miniatures in the garage over winter and they crack and expand through a process I don't truly understand, well then, the resin goes everywhere and ruins your carrier case and all the surrounding miniatures. So I'll have to think that one through. But I'm sure there are people who know what they're doing better than me when it comes to 3D printing. Anyway, am I surprised to hear Jerry was a bit filthy in his youth? Well, I suppose many people were. They just wanted to win. I've always really been about the fluff. I mean, it is called the hobby, but also I'm just not very good at any of these games. I'm not really a bean counter.
Just to let you know.
So Stumpy, what's Stumpy up to? Doing?
Stumpy.
Oh no.
We've looked at, we might have looked at one of Stumpy's other projects, but this one is his sort of YouTube channel catalog, specifically honing in on his old greenskins being up greenskinned of late. Ooh, you're dipping into there. No, you've gone so far back. Where you are, you're at the Sailor Wars. So far away, the Sailor Wars.
Light Goblin Chariot Kit bashing.
Mm.
And Kev Adams Goblins.
Also yes.
Well,
Also yes. So quite like Stumpy stuff. Not least of which because I approve of seeing old models getting out the table. Look at that. It's an original Skarsnik. A mad trident wielding fuck. Although obviously he needs Goblet with him. Because,
Oh, look.
if he doesn't, then he's just going to get hiding for his troubles.
Ball throwing lunatics.
Yeah, those are the wee ones that they released in plastic. How weird is that? That's never going to catch on.
I wonder why they stopped making these.
Money?
Well, obviously it's money. I mean, the last thing Games Workshop really wants on a kind of conceptual level is to allow us to get a set of miniatures which you can just keep using forever and ever without buying more miniatures. And so if they can make something we've got redundant in the name of a new sculpt, well, hey, why not? Albeit, to be fair, I think, the new Gloomspite Gits have a certain kind of much more in-depth, three-dimensional, characterful approach than the Night Goblins, who really were just part of a wider Orc and Goblin faction. And so I think the new Lunatic Sprue, whatever it's called, I think does bring out a bit more of that depth. And I mean, actually, going back to what Jerry was saying about, being filthy in his youth but having matured, much as Winston Churchill said, if you're a communist when you're a young man, when you're an old man, then you're a fool. If you weren't when you were young, you have no heart. Well, I suppose the same with, filth in wargaming. I mean, what I used to do was, I bought, I think, 12 of those ball and chain lunatics, whatever they were called, because that was the maximum that you could have, basically, if you assumed you had 3 pocketed in each of your Night Goblin units. Because I never used to win, really, with Orcs and Goblins, so anything I could do just to have a bit of a frolic was something I did. And so I painted up the 12 beautifully, and I laid them across the edge of the table, and anyone who attacked any of my units basically had to think, do I really want to do this? Because there could be 3 lunatics in there who will come out swinging ball and chain and cause mass devastation to my really expensive unit. And you'd be amazed how many charges just were kind of held back and not pursued. The golden days of 7th edition. They weren't golden. I don't think I ever enjoyed a game of 7th edition Warhammer Fantasy Battle, so unlike most people, I don't really miss it.
That's a
Have
horrible
I?
reason.
They made something like it, did they not? I don't know.
Oh,
They started making them all into things. It gets very confusing. I ignore them.
so many squigs. And
It's a it's a good amount of squigs. It's not the best amount of squigs.
they're also friendly with a friendly grin.
Yes. Only question now is, will they all get Teddy Ruxpinned up? Will everybody end up in a vivid red, or will it go for some sort of motley color collection? Because that's always more fun.
All right, so I can see the thinking behind, taking all 40 squigs and just painting, 5 each of, I don't know, kind of luminous pink and luminous yellow and luminous orange and luminous purple, akin to the idea that that the gloom spike gits are just a kind of manifestation of fungus gone wild. But, and with contrast paints, it would be fantastic and not that hard. But by the same token, it would look a bit bizarre and a bit psychedelic. And I think I might just paint them all red, if that's what Jerry means by Teddy Ruxpin.
Harley Quinns.
Well,
The Gore Chariot one is quite nice. I was watching this
Upcycled
recently.
Tuskor
Yeah.
Chariot.
Obviously, they're going on the wrong basis, which is just criminal. And I mean, he will be hunted down and killed for that.
Oh, come on, Jerry. We still live in a social democracy, you and I, in the United Kingdom. It's not Gilead for, toy soldiers. Yes, was it a mistake to kind of rebase my Orc and Goblin army on round bases when Warhammer Fantasy Battle kind of imploded and moved to Age of Sigmar? Yes, it was, because I didn't quite expect them to then kill the Orc and Goblin faction, leaving me, as you say, with kind of halved options. But I mean, look, the options aren't dead. Realistically, I was never going to play Oathmark with these giant Orcs and Goblins, which kind of dwarf what everyone else is really using for Oathmark. I probably have screwed up now them being usable in not Warpath, what's it called, Mantic Kings of War. But I've got plenty else to play in Mantic Kings of War, and you can still probably use you can put them on those giant movement trays, albeit that doesn't resolve the issue around heroes. But there's one-page rules. There's Saga Age of Magic, and there's the fantastic Dragon Rampant, which I can use them all for, albeit it is a bit kind of, what's the word? I mean, by dint of being miniatures agnostic, it's also kind of lacking in flavour, I find, all of this. But then again, when I'm a bit knackered and I play a game on a Saturday night or whatever with a few mates, Age of Sigmar, which you have your own cruel renaming for, to be fair, it does do my head in. You have to write everything out on a sheet, because the assumption that Games Workshop is making is this is your go-to game and you live in their own little microclimate of a universe playing only that game, when the reality is I'm not, and who is?
But boards have been replaced via the medium of, I believe, three-dimensional printing. So the smaller GW piglets have gone away to be replaced with these new ones. And also he seems to have, I don't know if he's lost the actual arm off that, because that is not the same arm as my driver has. But then they did redo Angors at one point, so he fucking knows.
I tell you, nothing escapes Jerry's BDI. He's absolutely right. That right arm that the Gore charioteer has got is a plastic arm. I replaced the metal arm because although everyone talks about the kind of golden age of the the 1990s of these metal sculpts, and they are very characterful, anything that was longer than about sort of 3 centimeters would just bend. And I thought, rather than having a bendy spear, seeing as the Ungor plastic sprue, which is fantastic, had loads of these extra spear-like arms that were kind of sturdy, I thought, why not replace it? Not least given that I might end up having a few of these chariots over time.
But it's just an interesting little project and channel as well, especially if you like fantasy, because there's an eclectic mix, because it could be something that's brand spanking new, like one of the packs of magic items from Age of Sigmar, or it could be something as old as fucking creation, and anywhere in between. That's a Chaos Warrior Chariot with a giant resin wolf from fuck knows where. I quite liked it in the middle of where he started doing the Shaggoth, and I'm going, hang on a minute, I've got one of those. I've got one of those still sealed that I got. I can't remember how fucking long ago, because I painted one, sold it, and I never got around to opening the other one. And I'm going, I should really open that because I could use that for something, because it fits on a quite nice little. It fits on a 40 mil. So it'll definitely fit on like a 50 mil for a monster for Kings of War.
So has the shrink wrap yet started to crush the paper box?
No, it's too far down in the strata for me to be able to reach and start poking at immediately. And I have other stuff around my desk that I'm going to try and avoid for the time being before I avoiding that. But yeah, sometimes it's the little hints from people going, you know, you've got these, McCabe, you should dig these out and do something with it. And then I go, oh, yes, I do.
Well, Jerry, you should. You absolutely should. If you've got all this amazing stuff, you should do something with it. And in many ways, that is the point of my channel. It's, I suppose, as much as about as getting this stuff out there so people can see it and enjoy it for themselves instead of it just sitting in my garage, as about encouraging me to get this stuff out and about. Anyway, thank you to some dude on YouTube and Jerry McCabe for all they do for the hobby and for their amazing sort of Twitch and Discord discussion of everyone's projects on tabletop, but also their YouTube channel of the same, which is what I watch very regularly, and you should subscribe to that. And of course you should subscribe to me because, you know, hey, why not show a bit of love? And I hope to see you around very, very soon. Bye bye.